Morning, everybody. Welcome to Sales Chatter. I'm your co-host, Ryan Mohammed. My amazing co-host with me, Jeff Dickinson, CEO and founder of RGTX Logistics Solutions. Good morning, my friend. How you doing this morning?
Good, man. How about you?
I'm doing great. We were just talking about how like this week has been flying by so much. I always truly look forward to this because this kind of like starts my day to get the day going. And just get to talk to amazing people, and amazing guests, and you know, let's get this bad boy started.
Yeah, let's do this.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
Boom, there we go. And Jeff, yesterday when we were chatting on our episode yesterday, when we talked about like the three habits and things like that, it actually got me thinking quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you sharing that because it's a lot of people are like we said, we're talking about New Year's resolutions and we're talking about different things, but it's like, once you kind of build those habits and you're continuously growing every single day by being consistent. And the one that stuck out the most for me is having empathy for people. And I want to thank you for that because like that was for me, that was like, wow, it's those things that we don't think about.
Yeah.
So as this morning, we have an amazing guest with us. We
We do.
have we have Jette Stubbs. She is the owner of the Happy Career Formula. I believe she's the author as well, and she has an amazing story that we spoke a couple months ago, and I was like, wow, like people would really, really cling to this. So we want to reach out and say good morning to Jette. Welcome to Sales Chatter. How you doing this morning, Jette?
I'm so happy to be here. I'm doing well. I'm really excited to talk about how my story relates to sales because it really was me learning how to sell myself.
I think that happened to all of us, Jet,
Yeah.
especially when you're not in sales, but I am now and learning all the intricacies, if you want to call it that, about how to go about selling stuff. So welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend a little bit of time with us this morning. Let's get into it. Tell everybody about your background. How did everything evolve where you are right now today?
So today I am a career and business coach. I help people design work to fit their lives. So that's typically focusing on six-figure careers, whether that's a job, freelance service, or business. So I help people find what they love to do and sell themselves so that they can design a job, a freelance service, or business that fits their life instead of squeezing their life in with the few hours they have left after work. But that started about 11 years ago when I had 90 days to build a career business or leave the country. I was an international student in Canada. I'm originally from the Bahamas. And when I graduated, I was stuck in this cycle where I had tuition debt that needs to be paid off, but I need the letter from the university to be able to access a work permit so that I can then get a job, but I needed a job to pay off the tuition. So I was stuck in this cycle
Right.
and I wanted to be able to break that cycle by getting a job, making some money, getting my way out. But I wasn't sure how to do that. So I applied for over 100 jobs and I
Wow.
got zero responses. And I was really devastated because I felt like I did all the things. You feel like you've put together something that's a good product, a good service, a good offer. I had done internships, I had volunteered, I had built work experience, I'd gotten a degree, and somehow it wasn't turning into the opportunities that I wanted. And what I learned was it takes one set of skills to do a job and another set of skills to get a job.
Mm.
And I had to learn how to sell myself for myself. And I didn't know where to start. There weren't a lot of offerings available. So I went and I read all the free books in the library I could. I went to all the free workshops and I like even to find the right clothing, I had to go and get the right clothes from different places that were free. And at the end of it, I went from that 0% response rate to 100 applications to a 70% response rate to 10
Wow.
applications. So I sent out 10 applications. I got 7 interviews. And as I continued to work, I was able to replicate that process. Um, but when I first started, there were a lot of obstacles. So I took the highest paying job, of course, because I was terrified initially. I didn't want to be stuck in a country with without the ability to return home because I couldn't afford it. So often people are unable to return to their homes and visit their families because they can't afford it financially. I didn't want to be
Right.
stuck in what I felt was like a dead end job in cold weather. Just started trudging my way there. Like that cycle of living paycheck to paycheck terrified me. So I wanted to be able to sell myself to be able to advance in my career. So when I started working in my first 18 months, I was pitching myself to do more. And by the end of it, the president of the company had to sign off on bonuses every 2 months because my job was changing so quickly
Oh,
that they couldn't change the job description fast enough to match it. So they would just look at the work I was doing and then give me bonuses every other month based on that work. So I'd get a bonus of a couple thousand extra every other month. And that was really exciting, but at the same time, I was experiencing discrimination at work. My first supervisor made a buzzer noise anytime I said something that sounded like I was from a foreign country. So it was like Jeopardy, like, and she would repeat that buzzer over and over. So, like, if I'm here doing a presentation with you, she'd interrupt me or say that buzzer, said, "You said something. It doesn't sound Canadian enough." So I'm going to repeat that buzzer over and over. And eventually, because I was attracting so many different opportunities, people started coming to me and asking for help. I started career coaching, and initially people were getting $20,000, $30,000 salary increases. Now I've helped people get hundreds of $1,000s more. And then I started business coaching because some people were just so stuck in their jobs. They were experiencing discrimination. And I said, hey, my parents were entrepreneurs. They taught me a lot about what they knew because my parents didn't have access to university education. They were self-taught. They built out a business that was worth millions. And now I love reading about business. I love learning about applying it to the digital age. I can help you. I don't know if it's going to work. And then people were able to leave their 9 to 5 in less than 12 months and replace their income. And that's how I became a business coach. So for me, it was a very organic process of learning how to sell myself
hmm.
that led to me doing what I do today.
That is incredible. Congratulations, first and foremost, because it seems like you went through a tremendous amount of obstacles to get to where you are today. So you should give yourself a pat on the back for sure. A lot of people fail way back before even getting to your point in your life or where you are today. That's fantastic. Now let's talk about your coaching. What do you think is the number one obstacle that people in sales face? I'm sure you talked and spoke to a lot of people out there. What is their fear? Where is the stumbling block that when they engage with you, you're able to excel them well beyond that point? Where everybody has that point where they're not comfortable, they don't know what to do next. What is that number one thing that you've seen?
That depends on which stage they're at in sales. So have they been doing it for a while if they're brand new? If they're brand new to sales, what I find is the number one thing is a fear of rejection. People won't want to hear from me. People will be annoyed. They'll think I'm being pushy. I'm going to be that greasy, slimy salesman that nobody wants to hear from. And the way I explain it to my clients is you you can design something, you can sell something that people are very happy to buy. When you walk into your favorite restaurant and a waiter hands you a menu, that menu is something that you're very excited to receive and buy from and purchase. And those are all products that that company is selling that you are happy to buy. There's so many times where we are happy to buy things that we love. When people line up to buy the next iPhone, they're excited about that. They're not complaining. I mean, they may not like the line, but they're still in it because they want to be there. So
Right.
there's so many times when we buy things that we love to buy, and instead of focusing on all of those negative sales experiences, focus on those positive ones and try and replicate those, because you can offer something. If you're solving a problem that people want solved, they'll be happy to work with you. They'll be happy to pay you. Now, if somebody is further along in the sales process and they've sold to a few people, but the message just isn't getting out and they're getting a lot of rejection, they've gotten comfortable with rejection, and now they're trying to shift it to some yeses, then I find the main thing is they're not really telling the story arc of how this product will transform somebody's life or how this service will transform somebody's life. They're not going and hitting those fears, obstacles, and questions that the person has about why isn't this working, or why am I stuck in this place? Why can't I move? Why can't I improve from this situation?
Mhm.
Or and they're not saying how their life will transform at the end of it. They're not painting that picture because they tend to focus on the middle part, like how the product will help or what it does, instead of telling the life transformation. So when I talk about what I do, like when I first built out a course, for example, I initially started by saying you need to learn this aspect of resume design. And that was the module, that was the name of that learning module. And then I realized I need to say resumes that convert strangers into your super fans. That was a much more
Yeah.
attractive title because
Mhm.
that's the story arc that people want to hear. They want to hear, that's what it does. It gets you from a place where your resume is on the rejection pile to something where it's working really well. It's the same thing for product and service descriptions. When I work with people for product and service descriptions, I said, I got into the nitty gritty of this is how we're going to design your product. And that is what I teach in the course. But the way I describe it is products that make it so you can sell with ease. Like you don't have to worry because the product is almost selling itself because of how you've designed it so that it meets client needs.
I love that.
Right, right. And um, when we get into like the novice part where people are just entering the field, they want to be salesmen or women. How do they define what they sell? How do they design their niche? Everybody that gets in it, they're really not sure, and they're trying to find out what to sell, when to sell it, sort of speaking, right? So how does one define and focus on the product, whatever it may be, that they should be pushing? How does one determine that? How do you help them to get to that point?
That's a great question, Jeff. So the way I help people do it is I break that down. If they have no idea what they want to sell whatsoever, like what product or service they want to create, I start with three areas of their life. I look at, okay, what type of life do you want to live? Because so many times people design a business that becomes their new bad boss that they hate, that they have this horrible relationship with, and they don't think that defining their life goals is an important portion of designing their business because they need to design whatever kind of work they're doing to fit their life. So we start by mapping out the different areas of life. I usually have people map out about 7 different areas of life. And we look at what do you want that to look like? Then we look at what sort of skills do you have? What do you like doing, what you not like doing, and what sort of problems have you faced in your life that you could potentially solve for somebody else? Um, and then we look at market demand. So out of those skills that you like using and those problems that you have solved for yourself, what which ones can make the most money? Which ones
Mm.
can be structured in a way that support your life goals the most? And in the middle of that is your sweet spot. So I usually just have that mapped out as a Venn diagram with those three things. And in the middle is your sweet spot. And if you're missing any one of those things, you'll end up really unhappy. So if you're missing the connection to demand, you'll end up a starving artist and you'll be really struggling to
I like
figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes that totally makes sense. Now, would you say that sometimes somebody has to get uncomfortable in order to succeed?
Yes, because you have to make decisions that you haven't made before. You have to The person who made $100,000 last month made different decisions than you made last month. So if you want to change your income level, if you want to change how you are working and living to be more aligned with who you really want to be and the way you want to live, then you have to make different decisions. And there can often be discomfort in making those decisions. It can be a discomfort in asking for more money. That's a huge one when people are learning
Yeah.
how to sell themselves. When I get people to ask for 3, 4, 5 times more than they were making before, there's a huge discomfort. Well, people will laugh at me. Well,
Right.
they think they'll think I'm not worth it. They're going to think I'm not an expert enough or I don't know enough. All of these fears come up, and I help people shift how they're thinking about the value that they're delivering because often they were underpaid to begin with.
Mhm. We're
Hmm.
looking at that, and one thing that you said that really got me thinking was like the whole menu thing about going into a restaurant. You think about that whole experience. I know if my wife, and shout out to my wife who just left a comment, but anytime we're kind of looking at a new restaurant, the first thing we do is, hey, we go check their menu. Okay, we kind of pre-plan what we're going to order before we go in. But when we go in and that waiter or waitress gives us that menu, we're like, maybe we want the chicken wings instead. Maybe we want something different. But I like that. Just kind of give a little bit of context as well for you being an international student in Toronto. For those who don't know, in Canada, the rates for tuition for international students is almost 3 times, 4 times than someone who's actually born in Canada. So for
Wow.
parents to make that sacrifice, like your parents made that sacrifice for you in the Bahamas to bring you to send you and have you here, and then you kind of like capitalized on that by you had 90 days, you made it work. I want to get into the happy career formula, and I got a question before we actually kind of get into that, because so many times I've read that you shouldn't do your passion as your career, because you feel like, hey, maybe it'll suck the life out of me, or I just won't find it fun. Where do you find that medium or that balance between, hey, my passion project and making a career with it?
Like it.
So I think that depends on two things. One is, do you get creative burnout when you're doing your passion? Like, do you really tend to get burnt out? Because if you are in that cycle, like I've worked with visual artists and creatives and musicians, and some of them, they get really burnt out if they are tying what they are doing to a paycheck. Other people can do it continuously, whether they're getting paid or not. So that is something you have to think about, because if you do get that burnout, you can still make money from the project, but you may not want to make it your main source of income, because you'll go through those ebbs and flows, or you'll need to manage your cash flow with that in mind.
Hmm.
The other way is, I encourage people to look for a passion that pays by tying it to like strategy. You need to, that's where you go from that starving artist mindset to really connecting it to demand, market demand. What will people pay for? How much will they pay for? How can you set this up in a way where you're automating as much of the process as possible for yourself as you're selling your product or service? Where can you go instead of finding just one person to sell to at a time, where you can find groups of people to sell to and market yourself to? So you're leveraging a larger audience so that you can maximize your income potential, but also reduce your workload. Because it can be, if you're doing something that is a passion project, depending on what it is, you can be very emotionally connected to it. And what can happen is, as you are selling it, you can take that rejection slightly more personally, because you're tied, you feel emotionally connected to this project. The other thing is, when you're building a passion project, you still need to build it for other people if you are planning on selling it. So you need to be doing market research as you're designing whatever it is. You need to be speaking to potential clients or people who have problems similar to the one that you're solving, or have goals similar or interests similar to the one that your project is related to, so that you can design it not just for yourself, but a collective of people who are similar to you, so that demand exists. That people are interested in it. As much as possible, sell before you build it out, so that you can know that this is a verified and proven thing. Otherwise, you could build it for yourself, but be aware that you could be designing something that may launch to crickets unless you have the right marketing strategy and it's connected to demand properly.
I love this. I love this. And Lisa's
I
actually got a
love
question for
this.
you. I was bringing up to Lisa here. What do you suggest if the passion project pulls you away from the moneymaker?
What I help people do is make money. So make more money with less hours. So you make
I
more
like
money.
that.
Where do
You
I
can
sign
work
up? We'll
less.
talk after.
That's good. I'm
Forget
in.
this podcast.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I help people structure it so we figure out what can make the most money from the day to day work, so that you can work less hours. A lot of my clients will end up, um, like, one of my recent clients who I did a video testimonial with, she worked 12 hours and made what she would in a week previously, because we had increased her hourly rate, and we so she didn't have to work as many hours, and she was able to still spend a lot of time growing out her new business idea and testing it out and validating it, because she was able to craft that work life balance for herself. She also had shifted from in-person 40-hour work week to remote shorter work week, so she was then able to travel, and she was based in the US, and now she's in the UK for 3 months.
That brings up another question. What I found out, because I used to work at corporate and then I started my own business. Not to say that I slacked off in corporate, but you know that you're getting a paycheck and you're doing the best that you can. But what I found out, that when you start your own business and everything relies on what you do, how you do it, when you do it, it seems, well, I'm not going to say it seems, I know you work harder than you do when you're working at corporate because you're building something that you believe in. So it's that structure, it's that foundation, it's the platform, it's the way you go about finding your niche and everything else in between in order to be successful. So, whether or not you increase your rates, you're still going to work at that pace. A lot of people work 9 to 5. But when you're remote, you're getting out of bed, like you say, at 6 o'clock, and instead of traveling to get to the office by 9, you're in your office at 7. Instead of working until 5 o'clock and getting a train or a bus or a car and getting home at 7, you're in your office. So you're gaining, at least 4 hours a day, if not 20 plus hours a week, doing what you love. So I find that, and I know you definitely put in a lot more work than you do when you're getting that paycheck on that weekly basis and sitting in your chair 9 to 5. I mean, what are your thoughts about that? How does one compress all of that to still reach their goals and objectives?
I encourage clients, one, to set boundaries, because it is easy when you're working at home for your work to kind of get away from you. For example, like I only meet with clients on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So I have flexibility the rest of the week, to set my schedule as I want so I can take time off as I need and do my admin work. Um, the other thing that's really important with that is sometimes clients, especially if they're starting a new business, as you start a new business, there is this idea that you need to really prove yourself to every new client that you work with. And often people will let the scope of their projects, of their work creep, especially if it's service-based work, and they'll keep on trying to do, oh, I need to do this extra thing for the client or this one more thing. And they won't look at the terms of the contract. And usually if you're offering to do more and more work for a client, they're going to be like, yeah, sure. And you're not charging them anything extra. Like it's a win for them. But what's going to happen is you're going to burn yourself out. The client would have already probably been satisfied, and you're not actually checking, like, did they actually get what they want? Are they satisfied? Are you going back to the initial contract and terms that you laid out? Most people, when they're starting their business, they don't know how to lay out those conditions very well. And that's where I'd often support them and say, okay, you need to define the scope of the project, the scope of the product or service. If you're offering support around that product, you need to define that so clients know what to expect. But a lot of times people think, I need to prove myself, I need to go above and beyond. And I'm not saying that you should slack, but often people are way too hard on themselves. Like I've done it where I thought, okay, I'm failing my clients, they're not going to be happy with what I do. And then I get on a call and they're like, you're amazing, I really love how much you helped me. Because we have this internal voice that feels like it's imposter syndrome, we're not doing enough.
Yes.
And so we'll let ourselves work more than we need to. The other thing is, in the beginning, if you don't have support, if you don't have guidance, you can spend a lot of times doing things that will not make you money. You focus on all the wrong activities, and then you fill up these very long days that don't lead to enough money. And then you think you just need to keep on doing it. And it's all of this trial and error instead of really focusing on the things that are going to get you money now. And that's where I help clients say, okay, what can make you money now, where you can like work fewer hours, have a stable paycheck, and then do all the other things that are going to be a bit more testing and experimenting, so that you can build out a life that is comfortable and not feel like business is this big leap. I like to make clients feel like they're taking baby steps into creating a business and a life that they enjoy, so that it doesn't feel like this one big leap that's this huge risky undertaking where they're going to be fully consumed and exhausted and overwhelmed. It's like, how can we break this out into steps that feel manageable and where you are starting to attract people to work with you very quickly?
I don't know
Yeah.
about you, Jeff, but like I can see why Jet is extremely successful,
Oh yeah.
based on like this 25-minute conversation because just the values and what you've kind of bring it's crazy. Like I know like even you're kind of like pitching to me. I'm like shit, maybe I should be hitting her up to hit her up, and I love my career. But one thing I kind of read on your website, and I do want you to get into the happy career formula
Mhm.
as well. But one thing I like that I saw was a testimonial where it was like, okay, when we go from an idea to an offer for a business, one of the examples you had was like food services, right? Somebody wanted to help like soon to be brides with their struggling with their catering for a menu and all that stuff, right? And then the offer was, hey, let's build like a 3-day celebration meal plan, including wedding catering with destination weddings and up to 20 guests and things like that. And I think, when you're very specific about what you truly want to do, no one's going to come out here and be like, hey, I just want to be successful. I want to make $1 million. I want to do things. It's like, okay, what do you really want to do? As Jeff always talks about niches. He always talks about like he'll only work within his niche. If a customer outside of his niche calls, he'll direct him to another SME or something like that because it
Right.
doesn't fit his soul. But with that being said, Lisa actually has a great question here for you, and I do want you to get into the happy career formula
Yeah.
after this. But
That
who
was a
is
good.
your ideal client profile, Jed?
So I've niched down a bit more recently. I've been working a lot with people who are interested in like international or remote work. So they want more flexibility. And my ideal client is looking, they're in a job right now, but they are looking to create something that's more flexible while they build out a business. So they are more entrepreneurial because I found that a lot of coaches weren't talking about that middle area. They were purely business coaches, they were purely career coaches, but so many people were stuck in this messy middle between a job and a business. The business wasn't making enough money, but they were going to a business coach and they were feeling like the business coach wasn't understanding their day-to-day career needs, like how they were struggling to do all of this work at the end of a 9 to 5. And so I help people get the 9 to 5 down so it's not actually a 9 to 5 anymore while they build out a business that they enjoy. Occasionally, I have worked with I'll have some clients that are purely starting off with career coaching, but those would only be like 6-figure executives or people who are in that space. So if I'm doing just career coaching, helping people find a job, that is because they are essentially entrepreneurs within that business. They are leading, they are guiding the vision, they are doing strategic leadership within those companies, and they are speaking with the executive team. And I help them understand how to build those relationships effectively. So you have to be like my clients want to be leading and driving the vision of some idea that they're really excited about. Yeah, but I've worked with clients in multiple countries like US, UK, EU, um, South America. It's been my clients have been all over the place.
So I'm going to take a stab at this, and
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. To our audience out here, what Jet just explained is her niche. This is
Mhm.
what she likes to work in. I mean, you can. She was passionate about it. She told you exactly what she does. I mean, that's what needs to be translated to everybody out there that is working in their own business of finding that niche, following it, driving driving that passion, and following through on those goals and objectives. You just heard Jet explain exactly what her lane is, and she loves to do what she does. So thanks for that great example. But I know what you do, and those people out there that are considering working internationally in those specific areas, I would say definitely go to Jet because she knows her stuff in that area, and that's what we need to do as salespeople in what we do, whether we're in logistics, supply chain, cosmetics, or whatever it may be. Have that passion, drive that forward, let people know exactly what you do, how you do it, and why you do it, and you'll be very, very successful for sure. Absolutely, I can guarantee that.
That's awesome to
Yes.
kind of think about. And you know, as we're kind of getting here to wrap up, I want to like it's just astonishing to me the conversations that we're kind of having right now because like this is truly driven. Like you just said, everybody in sales, you think about that quote unquote elevator pitch or kind of like what your script is kind of be or things like that. But when you define what you do and what you want to do, it's so much better.
Oh
Can you take us a little bit into what the actual happy career formula is?
Sure. So I've touched on it a bit already. It starts off with that desire, so what you want out of life. That Venn diagram that I talked about earlier. So the first component is desire, what you want out of life, because you need to set your life goals because your work will fund your life. And if you're happy with it, it will be something that is funding a life that you enjoy. That is usually the determinant. If you're enjoying the work that you're doing during the day and it funds a life that you enjoy, you're usually content. So the next piece is the skills. If you're going to be doing work that you enjoy, you need to be enjoying the skills that you're using on a day-to-day basis. So what skills do you enjoy using? Which skills do you not enjoy using? But also, which skills are you interested in using? Because there's also a growth mindset attached to that. Which areas do you want to grow in and do something different? And then the third piece of that Venn diagram is what is market demand? What will people pay for? So I always explain it as everybody has a tension between where they are now and where they want to be. And I have this tension, you have this tension, companies have this tension between where they are now and where they want to be. And your gap is your life goals. Their gap are their business goals, their individual goals if you're working with a client. And so you need to come in and say, I can solve one piece of your puzzle to help you get one step closer to where you want to go in your life and your life goals. And these are the skills that I enjoy using. Like I love what I do to help people design work that fits their life. So you need to be able to say, this is the step that I'm going to take. Because if you said you can solve everything for everybody, nobody will believe you. You need to niche down. You need to say what type of problems that you're solving. Like I love people who are doing international work or remote work. If you're going to stay local, I want you to have that flexibility to work from home and be where you want to be. So those are the people that I love working with. So you need to be able to define that for yourself and say, this is the one part of the puzzle that I will solve for you. Like you shouldn't come to me if your child's sick. You should come to me if you want if you want help. If you want help building the career that you love. So after you've done that, then you need to find ways to avoid three traps. So the three traps, if you don't have demand, you'll be a starving artist. If you are not connecting the work you are doing to your own desires, you'll be an unhappy professional. You could be making a lot of money. So many people who I work with are making six figures, but they're really unhappy because they're not connecting it to the life that they want to live. And they're letting their employer or their job or their business dictate how they are living their lives and how many hours they have left at the end of the day because they're not structuring it to live the life that they want. And if you're missing the skills that you need to do the work, you'll often feel like a dreamer. You have this idea of this life that you want to live. You know the type of demand that's out there. Oh, I wish I could do this really cool job that I see somebody else doing. But you don't have the skills or you don't know how to pull it together to execute. And so you'll feel like a dreamer who's never really accomplishing the goal. So you want to avoid those three traps so that you can end up in the middle with your happy career. And then once you've done that, there are certain levers that you can pull to start making more money. Like which markets are you going to be approaching? So how much disposable income does this market have? Do they have enough money to pay you? How many people are in this market? Can you automate it? Like I have moved into doing online courses and digital offerings. I still offer one-on-one support or group support to people, but it allows me not to spend 20, 30 hours with each person. Like it saves me time that I don't have to spend with that person, but it also saves that person money from having to pay me to tell them this thing as a lecture one-on-one. So how can you start to automate things so that you can help and support more people and drive that growth?
Right. Makes
That
a
is
lot of sense.
spectacular. Jet, want to thank you so much for coming out this morning. Let everybody know, how can they get a hold of you? What's things you got kind of planned for 2003 as well?
Yeah, so I have my own podcast, Happy Career Formula with Jette Stubbs, where you can listen to particularly episode 2 and 3, where I'll deep dive into the Happy Career Formula. Episode 1 is my story, and I talk about that journey, that those 90 days to build a career business, and all the lessons that I learned along the way. And episode 2 and 3, I dive deeper into those lessons so that you can understand how to apply them to yourself. And I talk about the 5 phases of growth, from going from no idea to systems for growth, so that you can create something that works for you. So I would encourage you to listen to Happy Cure. And if you wanted to take the quiz that Ryan mentioned, you could go to jetstubbs.com and take the quiz.
Yeah, it's a great quiz. It really dives deep, and I think it's amazing. Jet, like we said, thank you so much for coming out this morning.
Yes, thank you.
It's truly been a pleasure. It's probably one of my favorite episodes that we've done. You're amazing. So thank you for that.
Thank you so
And
much.
looking forward to hopefully we can connect again in the future, and have
Yes,
you back on here
please.
and anything like that. So thank you to everybody for coming out this morning on Sales Chatter. We will be hitting the replay at 12 and 3 p.m. Eastern time on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I want to thank our corporate sponsor, Daman from Centurion Trucking. He is looking for freight agents in North America and paying up to 60% GP. So definitely hit him up. He's got some good rates, and he's got a great team behind him. And want to thank everybody else. We'll see you guys tomorrow for Wins and Lessons on Friday as we wrap up this amazing week. Jeff, love you, brother. Always a pleasure. Jet, thank you once again. Everybody, have yourself an amazing day, and we'll see
Thanks.
you tomorrow.
Have a good day, guys.